13th, 2025. And Brendan Martin and Ocala. We got a great one today. Starting off, Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia over in the Athens. Jake Wimberly in Jackson, Mississippi, the Matrix man, has all kinds of charts and graphs on SEC football, where we're headed. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, will check in with us in the second half of the hour, along with Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. Take a picture with your phone of the QR code, and you can follow us on X, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. We're on 7 channels. A lot of content on this channel. We're adding a lot of shows. You can find them here morning, middle of the day, at night.
All the time.
Time.
I mean, Monday's like, we have only 2 shows on Monday. The rest of the week, I think it's at least 3 shows. So.
Yeah, at least 3 shows. So there's a lot of live content on here. And look, type in your comments and questions. I am not seeing on the right. I just see the comments.
We'll get there, Rob. Yeah.
Okay, but just type them in, because we will try to answer them and address them during the show. But a lot to cover today. So buckle up. A full 60 minutes of SEC and college sports content. The hour of power. It's Robert Schuler. That's right. Well, let's get started, man. Let's go to Athens. Jordan Davis Hill puts out nonstop content on the Dogs. Apologize for the delay. That's my fault. Jordan, there's a stat that just keeps blowing people's minds. Kirby Smart has more losses, has more first-round picks in his first 9 years than he has losses. 21 first-rounders, 19 losses total. Played for 3 national championships and won 2 of those 3. What are the expectations this year for Georgia? And I've had a lot of people, a lot of Dog fans I know, saying this quarterback, it's not real until he's signed. Well, that's always been the case. But let's talk about the 5-star, because we said last week, probably the biggest in terms of ranking and recruiting since Matthew Stafford back in February of 2006.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the expectations, I think they are what they've been for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's for Georgia to contend for a national title. And, we talk about quarterback, and I'll talk about Jared Curtis in a second, but to me, a lot of how far Georgia gets this year is on their current quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. I think that they've surrounded him with talent. They do need the offensive line to step up. It's a group that's lost 4 starters from last year, but did a great job of reloading at wide receiver this offseason. I think Zachariah Branch is going to be one of the most talked about receivers in the SEC this year. So, I think a lot of it's on Gunnar Stockton, but this is a team with enough talent to at least win 1 playoff game. And I think that's sort of the expectation, and probably where the bar should be after coming up short in the Sugar Bowl last year. And then with Jared Curtis, it's a step in the right direction. As you mentioned, Rob, it's not done till it's done. We saw that a few years ago with Dylan Raiola, where, kind of at the last minute, he decides he's going to go to Nebraska instead. But a lot to be excited about with Jared Curtis. He's getting comparisons to Josh Allen with just the way he plays and his physical ability. And now the question what I would tell people who are Georgia fans, keep an eye out this afternoon. They're going after 5-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell. He is going to make a choice at 3:45 Eastern time between Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Ohio State. Georgia has felt pretty good here, but Miami's trying to make things interesting late. So if they can get the number 1 quarterback on their board and then get the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, I'd say the 2026 class is in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and another question is, Carson Beck leaves after last year. Going into last season, some people were saying he was the number 1 pick overall, and his receivers, like you said, led the nation with 37 drops. Would Georgia be getting more momentum as a national title contender if he was the quarterback coming back in for his 3rd year? Or is it they're so loaded, but you never take anything for granted with the new quarterback, Gunnar Stockton? But how different would you think it would be?
Yeah, I think Georgia would be probably the number 1 team in these preseason polls. I think, it's just the fact that Gunnar has never been a full-time starting quarterback. The Sugar Bowl was his first start at Georgia. So I think the fact that you had Carson, and you had Carson as a known commodity. We saw the 2023 season. Even if 2024 was disappointing, I think that there would be some excitement, though. If you did have Carson Beck, there would be the question of, okay, how healthy is he going to be by the time the season gets here? Because you're factoring in that he had the elbow injury, that he didn't really participate in spring. What would that look like? And I think that Gunner doesn't. I don't know if Gunner's going to be as accurate as Carson Beck was, but I think that he's got a better group, a better supporting cast around him compared to what Carson did in 2024. So maybe that makes all the difference. I think that, as cliche as it sounds, if they can get Gunner to just, at the very least, be like a game manager and just avoid turnovers and keep possessions going, I think this team has enough talent that can be enough to win a national title.
I mean, in fairness, aren't all quarterbacks supposed to be game managers? They've got to manage it. And that, because I think when people say, and I'm not saying you did it, but people will say, oh, Greg McElroy, he's just a game manager. Well, you know what? He won a national championship being a game manager. And I want to know more about Gunner Stockton. I got several people saying, Brown, he's got talent around him, but now he's the starter. How's he going to handle it? Hell, nobody knows. I mean, but from what you gather and what his teammates and coaches say about him, how excited can Georgia fans be about Gunner Stockton? We know he's from Rayburn County. He drives a 20-year-old pickup truck with roll-up windows. He's pretty cool retro guy. That's what we know.
Heck, it ain't a 20-year truck. It's about a 40-year-old truck.
There you go.
But no, I mean, I think that his teammates love him, and I thought that was obvious from the second half of that SEC championship game against Texas. I think he's cool, calm, and collected. I think that he's a guy that can, really inspire his teammates and get the best out of them. I am fascinated to see and sort of hear about his dynamic as a leader, because what we kept hearing about Carson Beck was Carson's not really a rah-rah guy. Carson's not a guy that's going to like get in anybody's face. And, we still need to kind of see how Gunner handles that. But I will say this, what I think is a good sign for Gunner when you look at his Georgia career, when he's been in front of cameras in the last few months, it doesn't really seem to faze him. He's just kind of an all shucks guy. He'll tell you, what he's thinking. And usually, when we've had a chance to talk to him, he's not going to say a whole lot, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think he's a guy that, Georgia trusts, that Georgia feels really good about running the offense. And I think he's fully capable of getting Georgia where they need to go. Now, I want to see really that Tennessee game in week 3. They start with Marshall and they start with Austin Peay. But once they wind up playing and getting a chance to see him in Knoxville, his first road start against the Tennessee team that, I think we have a lot of questions about. I want to see how he handles playing in Knoxville. If he plays well there, I think we'll learn a lot about what he's capable of doing over the course of the fall.
Well, everybody always worries about how's the guy going to play when he goes on the road. And you look at Georgia's schedule last year at Texas, at Ole Miss, at Alabama. I mean, nobody had that. You won big. You stomped Texas on the road. Got beat by Ole Miss. Got beat by Alabama. But man, down 28-0 to come back like that. That's a team that's just resilient. Plays a full 60. What about this year's schedule is keeping you and Georgia coaches up at night?
I would say it's just some of the intrigue around these road games. I don't think we quite know what Tennessee's going to be after the whole Nico situation. The one that I'm circling, and people on our board, you find this hard to believe, Rob, were giving me hell. I was like, look at Auburn. Like someone asked me, which of these games are we not putting enough stock in? And I said Auburn. One, because it's on the road. We know weird things happen in Jordan-Hare, but I think this Auburn team, if they can get Jackson Arnold playing well, I think this is an Auburn team that can, win 8 or 9 games. And, think about 2 years ago, that was not a great Auburn team, and they pushed Georgia to the limit. I mean, basically, Georgia broke out Brock Bowers in case of emergency and just started throwing to him in the fourth quarter, and that was basically all she wrote. So it's probably that, and then it's just sort of, the thing that I hit on every single year is pay attention to the games in November, because you don't know how healthy you're going to be. I mean, you're going to be banged up. You'll probably be losing, missing some starters. And some of those later games, that Texas game at home is in November. That Georgia Tech game in Mercedes-Benz, I don't know that there's a team on Georgia's schedule that wants to beat Georgia as badly as Georgia Tech. I mean, it was right there for Georgia Tech last year. Dan Jackson causes a fumble right before the 2-minute warning. We go to 8 overtimes. You could have told me we were going to be there for the next week. It felt like nobody was going to win that game. But, I mean, I think those are the big things. There's 2 road games with Tennessee and Auburn, and then just hoping you can stay healthy by the time you get to November, because there are some teams on your schedule that can definitely beat you.
You got Ole Miss coming to Oxford, and we had Steve Shaw, coordinator of NCAA officials, on the show with us yesterday, and Jake Wimberly is going to join us here in a second from Jackson, the afternoon drive. And I want to ask you, Steve Shaw said they've addressed and they're taking it really as a priority, the fake injuries. And, of course, Lane Kiffin's name immediately came to the top of the list in Ole Miss. I mean, you see these guys getting up after a play and walking toward the sidelines, and suddenly they've got dropsy. They're on the ground just flailing like a dying cockroach. So it's going to cost you a timeout. I think that was what the ruling, but it was a very, very good conversation. When you get to Destin for the spring meetings, what in particular are you going to be asking Greg Sankey and the rules committee about this upcoming season? Because that to me shows they're committed to making the game, whatever fair is.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the rules committee, that's probably the biggest question, because how do you do it fairly, and how do you police it where you're not punishing guys who are actually hurt? So that'd be the biggest thing for me with the rules committee. And as far as spring meetings as a whole, I'm fascinated to see what's going to come up besides the House settlement, because I got a feeling if, Greg Sankey and the coaches and the athletic directors, I think you can ask them. I want to know what's going to happen with the 2026 schedule. I think if we ask that, we're basically going to be told we've got other priorities right now. We're trying to figure out the rev share and stuff like that. So it is going to be a really interesting week in Destin. Just fascinated to see what they're willing to say and how much of it, we don't know when exactly the settlement's going to be approved. There may be a lot of just, we don't know yet, which journalists don't love being told to wait and see. We want answers. We want them right now.
I mean, you like certainty and you like to have an idea. I want to bring in Jake Wimberly. I know we had a little bit of a late start. Jake does a great show every afternoon, ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in Jackson, Mississippi. Jake, Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers the Dogs. He covers Georgia like kudzu, cotton, and humidity in the South. And great getting 2 smart guys together. So now you may have a question or two for Georgia, and what Jake and Jordan will keep you a few more minutes. I know you got a busy schedule, but Tuesday morning, man, rush hour. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and let me just say this about that House settlement. I have zero faith in anything they're doing in Washington, that anything is going to become of this, and that we're going to, at the end of the road, that we're going to be any better. I just, we've watched this time and again. I think 13, 14, I think Ross Dellinger reported 15 times we've had proposals on the table. I just don't see, I hope it does, but I don't think we're going to see anything at the end of this.
I think what they need to do, college football just needs to bite the bullet and find a commissioner, because they just want to pass the buck to Washington to make a decision. It's just not going to happen. So just put somebody in charge, say he or she is in charge, and then go off what they say, because waiting on Washington is not going to be worth it.
Yeah, I like to say an old country term, could screw up a 2-car funeral. That's just how it is. And Jordan, I look at Georgia and Jake, where do you have Georgia just for right now? Where do you have Georgia in your SEC and national rankings? Because Jordan, he puts together these matrix and charts and graphs, and I've got Georgia. I'm not budging on Georgia. I've got them again. I'm picking them to win the SEC just because they actually have a team unity. But where do you have them?
Yeah, I've got Georgia right now, number 2 in the SEC, right behind Texas, and number 3 in my Power 4 power rankings. I've got Texas number 1, believe it or not, guys, I've got LSU number 2 in my power rankings and Georgia number 3. So, I mean, I've got 3 SEC teams right there, 1, 2, 3. I think the question marks, to listen to what Jordan was saying when I came in here, the schedule is definitely going to be, one that's going to be one of the tougher ones we've seen. They had the same schedule basically last year. The road trip to Auburn, I agree with him, is a game that is probably getting overlooked. But I mean, Georgia's going to be right there, I think, if they can stay healthy in November. But right now, number 2 in the SEC, number 3 in the country.
Wow. That's Jordan. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I'd say that LSU team just fascinated, because I feel like if they underachieve, I'm very curious what's going to happen with Brian Kelly. I don't necessarily think he would get fired, but I mean, they got a quarterback that, a lot of people think could be the first pick in next year's draft. So you got to take advantage of it. I don't know that they fully took advantage of Jaden Daniels, and we're seeing what he's doing in the NFL. But now, to me right now, if you ask me SEC title game, I'd probably say Texas and Georgia, which real original since we just watched that in December. But, I think those are the 2 teams you got to watch right now.
Jordan, one of the things about Rob, about Georgia is, we know this too, is even with all the hype, if there's one team that is not, enamored or worried about Texas, is Georgia. I mean, they beat them twice last year. I mean, not saying that they can't lose to them this year, but Kirby Smart is playing that against his team. We know how he does. Jordan, you know this better than anybody, being right there inside that program. He is not worried about it. I mean, I say he's not worried about it. He is not intimidated by Texas in the least.
No, he shouldn't be. And I'm really interested once we get to that game. The last 2 times they played Texas, I picked Texas, and we saw what happened. But, we'll see what happens when that game comes around. But I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go 3 times picking against Georgia, because I didn't look very smart after the last 2.
Well, last year, that was the game that I won more on than any game. It was I had Georgia to go to Austin and dominate. And Jordan, what grabs me, and Jake, you may agree or disagree, but Georgia's team, more than any other team in the SEC, just lives like their coach and plays like their coach. Kirby's so intense. You play Georgia, you better get ready to get down in the dirt to play a full 60. And if he could, I think he'll ability to keep playing. If you're a player, man, that synergy, you just absolutely, you don't want to disappoint Kirby Smart and any of those coaches or your teammates.
Well, when you look at some of those games, I think about that game at Texas. What always stands out is just how aggressive they are on defense. Yeah. I mean, they got after Quinn Ewers. They tried to put Arch Manning in for a couple plays. That was a disaster. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing in those big moments, is that Georgia's going to get after it. Georgia's going to blitz a cornerback who's going to cause a fumble. That they're going to have Jalen Walker all over the place making plays. I mean, that, to me, that, if you wanted to boil down why Kirby is so successful, is they're not afraid to be aggressive on defense. They may give up a few plays as a result, but they're going to get after guys. They're going to make guys uncomfortable.
Yeah, they really are. Jordan, I know you've been with us, and appreciate the turbulence here at the beginning of the flight, but let's do it again next. Love having you on here, and appreciate you do so much, again, during the week. If people follow him on X, let them know how they can follow you, and you've got a great podcast that you do as well.
Appreciate that. Dogs247.com on Twitter, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter, at Dogs247. Got the Junkyard Dogcast. We'll probably be doing a podcast this afternoon. And appreciate you guys having me on. And Jake, good catching up with you. And I'll catch up with y'all soon.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan. See you next week. All right, look, Buddy Martin just texted me something, and I did see it last night. Thank you, Buddy, down in the panhandle of L.A., Lower Alabama. There's going to be a war one day over who claims the panhandle. A lot of Florida people go, we don't want it. I'm like, I love it. But Josh Pate, pretty smart guy, like you, like Jordan and Brendan. His post-spring 2025 rankings, Jake, have you seen it? He's got Clemson. Yeah. Talk about it.
Interesting, because I have Clemson playing Texas for the national championship, and I think he's right on top of it. I like this Clemson team. I mean, I don't know that they're going to win the whole thing or can win the whole thing, but when you look at what Dabo Swinney has done, he has, defied the detractors, so to speak. He has not gone all in on the transfer portal. He's used it where it's needed to be used. But, Clemson has not done the wholesale change, and Oddly, Rob, I am not wearing a Clemson orange shirt today. So just know that I'm not teeing
It's
those
Oklahoma
guys.
State. I know.
Yeah, oh boy, talk about it. Hey, we talked about that yesterday. Mike Gundy, boy, he is wailing up there.
What happened
anyway,
last year, by the way?
I don't
That
know.
was
And then
crazy.
And then he had quarterbacks transfer out. One, I believe, went to Ole Miss here recently. He's down to 3 true redshirt and 2 freshman quarterbacks. I mean, that he's got to get that thing turned around. But back to Clemson, Clemson hasn't really gone all in on the transfer portal, but they haven't had a lot of attrition either. So Dabo has continued to, build this thing through the high school ranks and some junior college players. And, when you look at the returning quarterback play that they have with Cade Klubnik, plus they have the most experience coming back. I mean, they were the youngest team in college football last year, and they returned most of those guys. So, their talent is probably off just a little bit as far as, talent metrics from the likes of Georgia or Ohio State or Oregon or somebody like that, or even Texas. But this is a really, really good Clemson team. And I think, Dabo, we have seen his teams shine the best when he's had guys that can operate at the quarterback position, and Klubnik is one of those.
Yeah, I think he's out of Westlake out in Austin, Texas. And that was an interesting matchup last year when Clemson went on the road, played at Texas. What Clemson did not have last year was a running game. And, Ellis Johnson was on the show with us yesterday. His son Charlie's on the team as a tight end, preferred walk-on, big kid and a really good player. So that Clemson team, I think there are a lot of people that want to see them do well because of the way the Dabo and Clemson's trying to do it. Jake, let's flip over here to Mississippi State. I want to ask you, first off, on the baseball coach, Chris Lemonis, he's gone. Who are they going to go grab? Who do you think? Who are your top 3?
If I had to give a top 3, and we talked about, obviously this is a show every day, or a topic on my show every day, obviously living right here in central Mississippi, is where's Mississippi State going to go? I don't think we know yet. I mean, I think you would have to look at Virginia. I think you would have to look at Clemson, and then I think you would have to look at Georgia possibly for the assistant coach there that has ties to Mississippi State. And look, Justin Parker, I think he could work himself into this equation if they continue to win. I mean, they've won now 2 series in a row, oddly, since Chris Lemonis has stepped down, which that sometimes happen. You see, sometimes happens in sports. We see synergy. We can't really quantify it, but teams kind of rally around each other and around each. So, they get Missouri this weekend. That's a series they can go get. If this team gets into postseason, which they should now, and they make a run into a super regional, and then, if he gets them to Omaha, which, I mean, hey, look, 5 coaches, the last 5 coaches, including some interims since, early 2000s have taken Mississippi State to Omaha. If he can pull that off, he'll work himself right back in, or work himself into this equation.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a dead cat bounce. Coach gets let go, interim guy comes in, team rallies, and that's just not unusual at all. I want to go back. Brendan put up a graphic, and we flipped to Mississippi State. But Brendan, if you could put that graphic up again about what Josh Pate, and Josh was on the show about a month ago. Really, really, really like him, what he does. But
he's good.
He uses, like you do, a lot of charts and graphs and I guess algorithms, matrix and numerical systems. He's got Clemson winning the whole thing. Again, so what if they're in the ACC? Florida State is lost in the weeds. North Carolina, we don't know what Bill Belichick will have this year. We don't know Syracuse. Fran Brown's pretty good. I mean, Miami, are they going to get to the playoffs this year? But go back to that. The thought of the SEC for a 3rd straight year not winning the national championship, that'll keep coaches up at night. Look at that. Look at those rankings of Josh. Let's go over that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Clemson, that's a team, again, that Clemson-Texas matchup right there, if that was to be the case, that's what I have in the final game, at least today. And, of course, you can read all about that at cfbhourglass.com. Penn State is a team that I think is going to be as good as anybody in the country. And I felt like the media was really going to love Clemson and Texas and Penn State, and then Clemson as a 3rd. The problem with Penn State, again, is their wide receiver room. Their wide receiver room has just not been, adequate to that of a Texas or an Oregon or an Ohio State of last year. Alabama. So Penn State, I mean, they're a team that, I think will be in the Final Four. of the playoff potentially. Alabama, I don't want to say it's bang or bust for Kalen DeBoer, but he has got to get them back to to the playoff. LSU at number 5, I'd probably switch LSU and Alabama. Notre Dame at 6, they probably got the best running back in the country. Marcus Freeman has really, really done a great job with that program, as we saw last year. And then Oregon, this is a team that I have one in the Big Ten again, just because I like the way Oregon plays. I think Dan Lanning is kind of a step ahead. I know Ohio State really took it to him in the playoff last year, but I like if Dante Moore can be what they think he can be at quarterback, that's going to be a really good Oregon team. Ohio State could have the most talent in the country. They're just so young. I mean, you talk about Julian Sayin, they're young at quarterback.
Yeah.
They're going to be young at running back. They're young on the defensive front. They lost a ton of players to the NFL draft. So, I think they could actually get left out of the playoff because I expect Michigan at 19 on Pate still. I expect them to be much better this year, kind of a return to the top of that conference. Florida, DJ Lagway, I will see with Florida. Again, 8 wins is where I've got them. Can they make the playoff? I think, you're going to have a bunched up SEC. And that Oklahoma pick at 10, I've been telling everybody, and I think I told you this, watch Oklahoma and Brent Venables. If John Mateer is everything they feel like he can be, Oklahoma, their defense was good enough last year. They'll bounce back. They'll be in that middle 8-win, possibly 9-win type deal there. And of course, you mentioned Miami, Carson Beck, Arizona State. I think they kind of slide a little bit. I actually like Texas Tech at 20. I like them to win that conference. So there's a lot of good meat in this here. Georgia Tech, I've got them winning 10 games out of the ACC this year.
Wow.
I think that they're a really good. I mean, you look at what they did last year. They return a seasoned quarterback. Illinois, I think they could be the Indiana of the Big Ten this year. You look at what Brett Bielema did last year. Luke Altmaier, Mississippi product out of Starkville High School, went to Ole Miss. He has really found himself at Illinois. So there is a ton of storylines, not just in the SEC, but around the country as we move into the summer.
Well, there are. And Georgia Tech, Brent Key, offensive lineman under George O'Leary, the last Georgia Tech team to beat Georgia 3 consecutive years, and damn near did it, last year. Brent Key is getting Georgia Tech back in the conversation of legitimate quality football. And everybody has been looking the other way from the ACC, but I'm telling you, the stuff goes in cycles, people. Dennis Dodd said on the show a couple of weeks ago here, love what he said. He said, back in 1996, the Big 12 was it for college football. You had Oklahoma, Nebraska, you had Texas A&M. They were as they say, down in South Mississippi, on a gravy train with biscuit wheels. And I'm talking cathead biscuits.
Big old biscuits, catheads.
Big old biscuits. But, and Yancy Porter is going to be on here in a minute from Rebel Yell Hotline. But, and sometimes we get off to a late start. It's kind of cool. We sort of overlap. But, man, when you get smart people together, it's like sitting out in the yard in the South this time of year. Locusts, cicados, crickets. It's an incredible sound. Golly, Clemson, this is the storyline in college football. It's Clemson, old-fashioned, they got an 8-track player and roll-up windows. And, I mean, I'm telling you, they're going to gain fans all over the country. And you just think about it. Mississippi State baseball, back in the 80s, before it was on TV, they gave us left field, the left field lounge, the dude. The last 5 coaches, including Chris Lamonis, have taken Mississippi State to Omaha. I mean, even Les Miles and Coach O won national championships at LSU. That's how good Mississippi State baseball is, Jake.
It is.
That's some witty stuff.
It is. And, back to the Clemson thing, too. The first weekend of college football, the best, it is chock full, and I know we'll get into this as we move into the summer. Those week 1 matchups are unbelievable. I mean, everybody's gonna be like a puppy out of a cage, just running around, can't figure out where we want to go. That Clemson LSU matchup in week 1 at Tiger Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, that Tiger Stadium, that's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think both teams end up getting into the playoffs. I think both teams can make a deep run. But look, there's so many storylines. You talk about a Clemson pop-off. You let them beat LSU week 1. I mean, and then it's game on for them. Conversely, if LSU loses that game, Brian Kelly will have lost 4 straight openers at LSU. And that, you talk about the groaning pains down there if that happens.
Yeah. Well, but it's too expensive. You cannot. I'm sorry. He's bulletproof, because if you fire him, you got to give him $60 million. And if the House settlement goes through, tack on a $21.5 million athletic gratuity fee. That's what that really is, because you're going to have to pay it. You're going to have to come up with that money regardless. All right, Jake, before you go, what are the hottest topics that your audience is really locked in on in the great Magnolia State? I mean, look at this Clemson football schedule, by the way. LSU, Temple, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, North Carolina, looks like Boston College, SMU, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, Furman, and, of course, South Carolina. You're right. They win that first game, Jake, the upstate, the low country, man, Clemson's going to be – because Cade Klubnik is a damn good quarterback.
He is, and you look at that schedule. I appreciate Brendan pulling that in. The LSU game obviously is extremely pivotal. Watch the Georgia Tech game against Syracuse is an interesting story. Bill Belichick, I mean, I just think that whole thing is too much of a train wreck right now. We'll see how that plays out. SMU is a team that I just really, really love and love what they did last year. Felt like Jennings, their young quarterback, kind of got lost, in the pool, so to speak, late in the year. He was just throwing too many interceptions, but that's a really good program. Florida State, we'll talk about this another day. Florida State, Alabama, week 1. Which Florida State is going to be Florida State this year? Is it the 13-0 Florida State team from 2 years ago? Is it the 2-win team from last year? Which Florida State team? Louisville, I think, is going to be right there in the conversation. And then South Carolina. So, Clemson, they book in with SEC opponents. Obviously, that Clemson game at the end of the year, South Carolina game. So, but I still think, this is a schedule that lends itself to massive success for Clemson.
I think it does. But people forget, Illinois last year with Brent Bielema and Luke Altmaier, who's been in college football for more than 3 years. He's been around a long time. From Starkville, was at Ole Miss, the heir apparent, but it didn't happen. Brent Bielema, remember, he went to 3 straight Rose Bowls before he went to Arkansas. This guy's won before. Talk about a hard head, stubborn, doing it my way. That's Brent Bielema. He sticks to his guns. He just does it that way. All right. In Mississippi, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that rivalry is so intense. It's in everything. 21 and 22, back-to-back National College World Series champions. What are the hot topics that y'all are talking about? And let people know how they can follow you, Jake, because your show, I love being on your show. You got an active audience with a bunch of passionate people and a bunch of fan bases that just all converge on the bold new city. It's really a great show.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, you can just find me on X at Jake Wim. Show is 3 to 6 every day. You can stream it on the zone1059.com if you're outside the listening footprint of Central Mississippi, which we're covering about 2/3 of the state on the FM dial, 105.9 on the FM dial. And, of course, just find us on the TuneIn radio app and more. Just search 105.9 ESPN Radio in Jackson. Right now, obviously the hot topics are baseball. When you look at what Mississippi State is doing, Ole Miss is doing, the coaching search. Football never dies. We're talking just like we are here. We're talking Clemson. We're talking Texas. We're going around the horn, looking at different conferences. And then high school football is a topic that's always current here. A lot of Mississippi teams like around the country are finishing up spring practice. So trying to get some information on what's going on there. A story to watch in the state of Mississippi, and I'll leave you with this, Rob. You can look at it if you hadn't seen it. You can ask Yancy about it, is Lane Kiffin's son, Knox, is enrolling at Oxford High School, which is a big 7A program here in the state of Mississippi. He's a quarterback. He's got already several offers. And this is going to be an interesting story to follow, how Knox Kiffin fits into Oxford High School and the 7A, which is the biggest classification race in the state of Mississippi. It's going to be fun to watch.
All right, look, waiting on Yancy. I hope he'll be in if he can stay a couple of more minutes. But that's an interesting story because I know his daughter, his son, his ex-wife, they're all living in Oxford. So now I want to ask you about Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby. This is year 2 for him. They just announced, I heard Chuck Oliver talking about this last night, listening to his podcast, about a $60 million new athletic facility, state-of-the-art practice, health and wellness and all. In a time where everybody is, having bake sales and standing on the corner, holding up NIL signs, to put $60 million, it sounds like, into brick and mortar, that's a 180 from what everybody else is doing. Where's the money coming from? And do you think that's a good use of funds with NIL out there?
Yeah, I mean, the funds are coming privately. Obviously, I'm not sure exactly, which private entity they're coming from. I have not heard that. That may be out there, but I haven't seen it. Is it good? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you've got to continue to upgrade your facilities. Personally, I mean, I think it's a balance, right? We don't know that all 60 will go to that. Who knows? They may, move some of that into a slush fund and try to, divvy that out. I think it's a balance. Teams have to balance this. They have to balance. You can't just quit, and we know this. We can't just quit building facilities, and just quit upgrading stadiums. We can't, throw all our money into name, image, and likeness. It's like, Charles Barkley said the other day, I mean, you may have seen it. He said, look, only one team can win a championship. He said, and these teams are throwing this money out here like it's, they don't have good sense. And what is the return on the investment? And I'm not saying you don't spend the money, but I think you have to be smart with your money. And, Mississippi State, there are some facility upgrades that need to happen there for sure.
If you don't upgrade your facilities, a certain percent of maintenance, 5%, 10% every year, you end up with an explosion like what happened with NIL. I mean, how many years, decades did we hear student athletes saying, just give us a basic pension, just give us some basic health care and insurance? And look where we are now. Jake, how strong is that Mississippi State NIL program? We hear about the Grove Collective. What's the name of the Mississippi State Collective?
It's called the Bulldog Initiative, and it is a. I would say it's a good collective. It's a good sound collective. It's not a bad one. It's not a great one. I think it's a good one, and I think they've done a good job with it. Charlie Winfield leads that thing up there. He does a great job with a lot of other people, and they have worked tirelessly, like a lot of other people, to make that all it can be. And look, they have done a good job. Mississippi State, though, doesn't have, and we know this, the Texas money and the Texas donors. They don't have the SMU money. They don't even have right now. It looks like the commitment from Ole Miss money, but it is good money. And they've gotten some nice donations there that they've been able to facilitate, through basketball, baseball, and football.
Well, I know they got a gift a year ago of $100 million from one of their alums out in Houston. I think he's in the oil and gas business. But what I'm going to tell you, nobody has the Texas and Texas A&M money because the Permian Basin. I mean, we all watch Landman, Billy Bob Thornton. That's a great show, by the way. 4.2 million barrels per day coming out of the ground out there, average. And 2/3 of that money every year is given from the legislature in Austin to the University of Texas. 1/3 to A&M. So maybe anybody else hasn't jumped into the mix. But before you go, another one, Cody Cameron, offensive lineman, 4 years at Texas Tech, a couple of years in the NFL. He's now a billionaire, and he is pumping serious money into Texas Tech. What you've got to watch are the schools with a real strong engineering, chemical engineering, petroleum engineering. Texas Tech's got one of those. So it's crazy.
You got to be a hell of an engineer, Jake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, obviously I missed the boat. I'm not that kind of engineer. Yeah. So my engineering.
I'm a hell of an engineer.
Hell of an engineer. Rambling Rex from Georgia Tech. But
no doubt.
It's just
Tuesday humor in the morning, Jake. That's all I got, buddy.
I love it.
There's no whiskey in my coffee today.
Tuesday stand up. Jake, tell us how we can follow you on all your great work, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Follow Jake by clicking on this little QR code down here that I made for my friend Jake Wimberly. You can go to the drive.
There you go.
And check it all out. Right
you are a gentleman and a scholar, Brendan Martin.
Really
thank you so
there.
much.
Cool graphic. The drive with Jake Wimberly takes you all the deal. It's all the stuff right there. So
thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
All right.
Guys, have a great Tuesday. We'll talk soon.
See you.
All right. I love that shirt, man. Take care.
Thanks. It's not a Clemson shirt, by the way.
That's right. I love it.
See you,
okay.
Bud.
We're going to switch gears before we go to Rodney Orr, Title Insider in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's only $48 a year, folks. Since 1996, no one covers the Crimson Tide better than Rodney and his team, and those forums are fabulous. I want to say something about Winter Timber Outdoors in Athens, Alabama, up on the top of the state of Alabama, right between Muscle Shoals and Florence, the Quad Cities, and Huntsville. They're open every day of the week. All your hunting and fishing, your outdoor life, your Yeti coolers, the Yeti life, they've got you covered. Sit Here, which is great duck hunting. Sitka's got Dixie decoys, duck camp, the St. Nick's knives, all your firearms, everything that you need to live that life. And again, they're building a 13,000 square foot store on University Drive in Auburn, expected to open late July this summer. And their plan is to grow in all the towns that make up the Southeastern Conference footprint. Rodney, you saw that Josh Pate and Buddy Martin sent me this. I saw it last night, and he just sent the graphics, and Brendan put it up there. Alabama at number 4 in Josh's post-spring training rankings. So expectations at Alabama, that's just part of the gig. When you take the job, you know it. Everybody knows it. And a national championship is the goal every year. You got 18. You could probably claim 27. But how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
A lot. Good. Rodney, what's happening at Alabama right now that we're not hearing about? And then I want your comments on Clemson 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Bama 4, and LSU 5. That's
okay.
Josh
And go
Pate.
right now, Rodney, or go right now. All that information, I want it right now. Right.
Well, first of all, as far as what's going on,
Hi,
there's
Rodney.
really.
How are you? Good to talk.
What's
to
up, Brendan? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We just say hello and goodbye right now. I'm just, please and thank yous and stuff. I just want to say hello. That's all.
Okay. Sounds good. I hope you're doing well, Brendan.
I hope you're doing well, Rodney.
I
Rodney's
am.
like mentor guy. He's one of the greatest ever. So
He is.
just had a personal moment there to say hi to my friend Rodney. Okay.
I appreciate that. Well, right now I think it's kind of in a period where we're in between what happened in the spring practice, and then what's going to start here with recruiting coming up in June. And obviously the players are going to report back for summer school and for the workouts and the things that they do here at the end of the month. So it'll start picking up before you know it. 7-on-7 type stuff that the players do, and obviously the summer workouts and all of those things. But right now, it's just been really kind of quiet in terms of football. Kind of the quiet before the storm, before things really get to rolling. So, but as far as the Josh Pate predictions or whatever, it's a prediction. I think it's interesting. He shuffled some things up. I was surprised to see Georgia at number 11. There's some, again, I think when you look at all of those teams, and to me, look, seriously, you can question every team. It's not like there's a team that you say, okay, this is the team. If it were me, if I was looking at that, as I'm looking at that list, and I said, okay, if I've got to put money on who I think should be number 1 or might have the best chance to be number 1, I would go Texas. But that's just me, and they have issues. I understand Clemson being number 1 because, let's just be honest, the schedule is not the most difficult, and Clemson should be really good too. So, but as far as Alabama at number 4, we'll see. I put out a little prediction on my website on TigerInsider.com about a week and a half ago, and I had Alabama at number 7, and I thought that might be a tad high, but do they have the potential to reach the top? Definitely. But because I'm close to it, I see a lot more of the flaws.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, I would agree with you. Alabama would be a top 7, top 10 pick at the worst, because last year, if he could have done what he wanted to do, this is just my opinion, Kalen DeBoer would have put either Ty Simpson, Austin Mack's too young. He was not ready. But this is more Ty Simpson, the type of quarterback that he needs to run his offense. So that's going to mean a lot this year. And you go back to Alabama's losses. Nobody would have taken the odds that Alabama would lose at Vanderbilt, and they didn't think they would lose at Oklahoma. Now, that's a proud program. You know that. But to lose, to be down, 24-3 at one point, it was just – those are some unusual losses. And then you win at LSU, and you win against Georgia, but you lose against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, and I'm leaving off another loss
Michigan.
on there. Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, but in the bowl game, yeah. But Rodney, I don't think it's going to be a reach for Alabama to get to 11 or 12 in the regular season. I won't be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, again, who knows? I mean, we really don't even. It's hard to kind of with this portal, and it's really hard to see how these teams, the chemistry that's going to be, what it's going to be like. It's just there's so many questions. Now, I will say this about Alabama: the vibes are really good. I mean, the vibes are really good, and people say, "Well, what does that mean?" Well, and again, I want to be careful. But I think a lot of the drama is gone. And what I mean by that is there was some carryover from the end of Nick Saban's tenure. Mm-hmm. And, the lank, all of that stuff. I mean, that's fine and dandy. But there was just so much drama around Jalen Milroe last year. I mean, and when I say that, again, I'm not being critical of Milroe, but he went on a PR tour last year this time and was showing up in front of every camera. And it was, it just got to be, you got the impression that everything was about Milroe. He was trying almost like to build this brand. And I think that kind of hurt a little bit. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Milroe. I'm just kind of looking at it. It's a lot more low key right now. Ty Simpson's, he's not out in the limelight. Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, the true freshman. So I think that this team, it's always tough that first year in a transition, as you know. But I think this team also, these group of players, there's a greater focus on the way Kalen DeBoer does things and what he wants to do. He's obviously had more time. Last year, it was such a rush in that transition that to kind of get your culture implemented in that short period of time with all the things that were going on, there was just no way. So I think this year we'll have a better idea of kind of Kalen DeBoer's program here. And I look forward to seeing what it is.
Well, I mean, Kalen DeBoer won more games in his first year at Alabama than any Alabama coach I can remember. At the same time, they could win 11 or 12 this year. They could also have another 3 or 4 losses like everybody else can. But
absolutely,
I'm with you on the stability part of it. And then you look at, Florida. As a stock portfolio, that's a fallen angel. That's a 200-year dividend history, never missing a dividend that's down in price. Auburn, same thing. They're going to both be better this year. The league's going to be better this year, but Alabama will be better than they were last year, which will put a squeeze at the top. And you look at the defense, Cade Womack, how strong is that defense going to be? And is there any real depth, in your opinion, on the front seven?
I think there's a lot of confidence coming out of the building about the potential of this defense. They've got a lot of players coming back. They've got a good nucleus up front with Tim Keenan, James Smith, and LT Overton. But behind that, you mentioned the depth. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of young players. Edric Hill, Jeremiah Beeman, Jordan Renaud, Keon Keeley, those type of guys. Kelby Collins is another guy that the transfer from Florida, who's definitely should be a help this year. But I think the depth there is something that has to kind of emerge very quickly. So how do they develop those guys is up front on the defensive line is going to be a real key. But overall, defensively, I mean, I think they feel great about their linebackers. Obviously, with Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson back, and Nakai Hill Green transferred from Colorado, he was their leading tackler. Who, by the way, he's also played at Charlotte and played at Michigan. Started out at Michigan, so he was an All Big 12 academic honoree as well. So he's a really smart kid. So they feel good about linebacker in the secondary. I will say this. And again, I don't know how they're going to perform, but just on a talent level, this looks like a Nick Saban secondary. When you talk about Damani Jackson, Xavier Brown, some of the young players they have, they got a transfer, Cam Calhoun, who originally started at Michigan, played at Utah last year, but he's transferred in as a corner, could play multiple positions back there. A true freshman. Now, this is the name to mark down, Dejon Lee. He's about 6'4", legit. He was the rave of spring practice there in the secondary at corner. So Keon Sabb's back, Bray Hubbard, Zay Mincy. I mean, those are safeties that are really, really good, and they've got a lot of other young players, but you get the drift. They're really confident about this. I think they're confident about the defense taking a big step.
Running back room, Justice Haynes out of Beaufort, Georgia, the transient school that Georgia struggles to get anybody from, but he's gone. And the running back room's got to be deep to win the SEC. Let's talk about the 1, 2, 3, because it's running back by committee in today's world. Nobody wants to carry the ball 40 times anymore. They're 12 or 15, and they're asking you to take them out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, Jam Miller's back, and Jam started last year, and he's played a lot over the last few years. And then Richard Young is a young rising redshirt sophomore who was a 5-star player out of Lehigh Acres, Florida, who's really promising. But now I will tell you this, the guy to keep an eye on, potentially breakout type guy, Daniel Hill, who last year was a freshman, played some. He's from Meridian. He's a sledgehammer, 235, 240. He's got pretty solid speed for his size. I mean, but here's the thing. He's a really good receiver too, but he breaks tackles. I mean, he runs with power. He can break tackles. And Alabama, these backs ranked among the lowest in terms of breaking tackles last year in the SEC. So that's what he brings. He brings power and the ability to run through tackles. And I think that's something that they really like.
Okay. Another question for you. You know what we don't hear a lot about right now? Strength coaches. We all remember Telly Savalas' nephew, Scott Cochran, in there, just barking. Just it was such a difference. And then you brought Ray and Ballou down from Indiana with sports science on another level. That you don't hear about strength programs really anywhere anymore because of NIL. And I'm just wondering, talk about that. How much stronger physically is this Alabama team? Because if you can't move people off the line of scrimmage in this league, again, you're going to be sitting in your driveway and never be able to get out on the street.
Well, there's some Alabama fans that are of the belief that Scott Cochran was the reason they won national championships. And, that when he left, that's when everything changed. And look, I give Scott Cochran a lot of credit. He did a fantastic job. There's no doubt about that. But, and he was the foundation with a lot of the players and the relationships that they had. But David Ballou has done a fantastic job. They've done a great job. He, like you said, he's low key. He's not in the center of attention. And he just has a different style. But I think you look at them on the hoof, Alabama, this team, and I think they look pretty good. They look really good. Okay. So I think he's done a really outstanding job, David Ballou and the staff, of preparing this team.
Yeah. Well,
I wanted to ask you, Rodney, if you've been around at least SEC football, but, because of the rules and the way things are, the strength and conditioning coach in the off season is like the head coach. I've heard, we've all heard that before. Is that still true, do you think, as far as how that, with NIL, transfer portal and all that stuff, just because they have access every day?
Yeah. Well, I do, and again, I don't have the rule book in front of me exactly what coaches, on-field staff coaches can do now, but they do have a lot more leeway in terms of the time that they can spend with players now that they could not spend just a few years ago. I mean, they have a lot more, I think, access to the players on a regular basis, and so maybe some of that when Cochran was here, he was kind of in the position that you described there, where he was with them most at this time of year, or throughout courses of year. So yeah, his influence was great. Just to use that as an example, but and again, I still think yes. Their roles in strength and conditioning are certainly really vital.
And
Maybe
not to say the off season is not important, Rodney.
sure, sure.
Obviously that coaching position is going to be, a more of a priority in the off season because you're going to be in the weight room more often.
Exactly.
So, I don't mean to not skip over the obvious. So, but I mean,
that's true. And I do think that they set the tone. I think that the strength and conditioning coaches set the tone for this whole deal.
You absolutely. I mean, like cross country T-shirt says, "Our sport is your sport's punishment." But if you don't put that time in the weight room and doing all the hill repeats and the crucible, it shows up. I mean, it shows up in the fall. But Rodney, we're going to wrap up now. But
I just wanted to say really quick, basic rules, right, Rodney? Summer interactions with players. Just reading through it real quick. Coaches can interact with players for up to 8 hours per week over an 8-hour week summer period, provided players are not enrolled in summer school or meet academic benchmarks. This was adopted 2014. Up to 2 hours for football-related meetings, film review, classroom sessions, and all that kind of. Up to 6 hours for strength and conditioning workouts supervised by strength coaches like David Ballou. And no on-field work. I think that's where we all know that quarterbacks and receivers go work out by themselves.
Yeah,
so,
that's a shocker.
Anyway, nothing really too earth-shattering there, but nonetheless, just sort of reiterate your point, Rodney.
Right. Yeah.
Rodney, it's going to be fun to watch this stuff, man. Let's
Thanks,
and tonight, Tyler Insider TV, 6:30 with you and Gary Harris on YouTube. But Rodney, thank you for sharing your time. I know coming on with me is like pulling out of your driveway doing 100, but we get excited talking about football. Okay, take care.
Talk to you soon, Rodney.
Okay, guys.
YouTube. Let's say something about Landers Ford, folks. It's never a bad time to go look for a new car, truck, or SUV. Popular in Houston Levy, where Memphis and Collierville meet. Open every day of the week except Sunday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. You're worried about tariffs? They got you covered. They're doing employee pricing for customers. Let them know you heard about it on SEC Sidelines. Take off $500. Brad Bellamy is who you start with. Ask for Brad. He's the general manager. He will help walk you through the process. Great folks all over, and they'll deliver anywhere. LandersFordMemphis.com. Right down the street from another sponsor, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Get out there, man. Over 7,000 pairs of boots, men's and women's. Brendan, your boots should be arriving any day.
I heard that Sammy which by the way, cutest dog in the world. Look at every day. Look at that. Every day. It's his chair. Every day. He just ran off barking because there's a delivery. So tomorrow we may have an unboxing.
Remember Blue's Clues? We just got a letter.
Right. We'll do it. We'll do it at the end of the show tomorrow, and then we'll do an unboxing. We'll go late tomorrow, and we'll do
an unboxing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's what all the kids are doing right now. So
that's right. School's getting out. But hey, great show today, Brendan. Great graphics and all. Found out what's going on with the Starlink. It's fixed. It's a technical
because your internet sucks right now.
Hey, yeah. Let me say this too. Mother Teresa said, we can't do everything, but we can all do something. And most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Let that resonate. Let that sink in. We'll see you tonight on The Lowdown, Lauren Meadows, right here on this channel. For executive producer Brendan Martin and all of you watching, we're blessed in more ways than we can count. See you tomorrow. Tonight.
See you tonight. Tomorrow. Wait.
Tomorrow.
Tonight. Tomorrow. Today. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.